Sports Shuffle. It is August 12th, 2023. I am, of course, Flying Ryan Gilchrist along with.
Tampa Motormouth Joel Vrillon is, of course, we have to get it out of the way that if you do overreaction from one freaking game that's preseason when it's the third and fourth stringers more likely playing, that most likely until injuries happen and occur, you will never see these players on the field in any meaningful type of usage. Yeah, going with the overreactions, the Bucks are going to be last place, and Steelers are going to take the crown.
Oh, yeah, Kenny Pickens, George Pickens look great. Already had someone anoint George Pickens. This is his breakout year. It's like he caught one pass. It was for a touchdown against backups for the Bucks. Jesus, calm down. Bears are winning the Super
It's
Bowl.
preseason.
Yeah, today the Bears are going crazy with their first team offense, and Bears are gonna do something. It's like they're still playing backups. It's preseason game one.
Bears
Let's everybody calm
still
down.
suck. Boom, boom.
I mean, yeah, sure. Justin Fields was 3 for 3 with 2 touchdowns and 129 yards, but that's because of 2 very broken plays because you're playing backups. It's good to see one of those go to DJ Moore. Maybe there's like you're not looking for a team that's like, oh my god, like the Chiefs probably won't win a preseason game because they're not going to have to play Travis Kelce or Pat Mahomes or most of their stars because they already know who's good because they've won the Super Bowl. Calm down. If you're going to look at any preseason game or week, look at week 2. That's when your starters are going to get the most run against starters. So we'll see. Baker Mayfield looked good for the Bucks, but he was playing not the first team for the Steelers. We'll see how Kyle Trask looks next week more against the starters of the Jets for your Bucks. But yeah, people already online with the Dolphins. Oh, they're going to be bad in the regular season too. They benched 20 of 22 starters. The entire line on both sides of the ball was reserves. Like, calm down. Yes, the offensive line looked bad because it's 5 backups. Relax.
Hey, I just got
Just
a,
week one
a
preseason.
notification those two goofs are alive on from Sports Shuffle.
Hey, look at that. That's us. So, today, last divisional breakdown, the breakdown of the reigning Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, the AFC West. And this one has a lot of good options. So, Joel, let's start with those Super Bowl winning Chiefs.
I think we can begin this divisional breakdown. Pretty much, it's going to be about who's 2, 3, and 4 for both of us. Since I think unless both of us are really high on something, we ain't picking anybody else other than the Chiefs.
The
Or,
Chiefs have earned the right to be assumed as the
or
winners.
like
So,
the one time when they screwed up their end zone, the Chiefs.
who are the chefs? Yeah. Anyways, so we're going to talk about the AFC West. We'll start with the Chiefs. The Chiefs do not have a lot of solid fantasy known commodities to talk about, in my opinion. Of course, you have Travis Kelce, who we'll get to when we get to tight ends. And of course, you have quarterback number 1 this year, Pat Mahomes, going off the board at ADP 15.3. So an early second round pick if you want to go that way. He is the cheat code in the passing game. He is the best passer in the NFL. Could, when it's all said and done, be the best passer that's ever played the game, best quarterback that's ever played. He is off to that level of start in his career. Pat Mahomes, you're not going to be disappointed in him if you do draft him. In his career, his worst finish was quarterback 7 in 2019, where he only played 14 to 16 games. Other than that, he's been 1-4 with 2 missed games, and 1 outside of the first season where he didn't play all but the last game of the regular season. So you're going to get good results. Early second round pick, if you get number 1 quarterback, number 1 player overall, you're probably going to be okay with that. You are risking and sacrificing a lot of talent in that early second round to draft him, but the return on Pat Mahomes is about as safe as it could be, barring injury.
Yeah, because on some not as deep leagues, he's going round 3 after the wide receiver you tend to love, Olave, and before Josh Allen.
And the thing is, if you're doing a random league, you can go based off of ADP. And I do want to remind everybody, we've talked about ADP. I go off of Sleeper because most of my leagues are through Sleeper. ESPN's different, Yahoo's different, My Football, whatever. I know you're looking at what, Underdog? when you pull
No,
yours. So
actually, this is ESPN this time.
ESPN. So you'll notice all of these are a little bit different. So if you're playing on an NFL.com league and Pat Mahomes is going in the middle of the third round on ADP, don't draft him early second unless you must have him, because there's a decent chance he will get into the middle of the third because a lot of players go off of ADP. You know your home leagues better than some others. We'll do a draft strategy show here later, but I know for a fact the little too serious, the one right up here in this top corner, I know historically that league has been slower to draft quarterbacks than any other league I'm in. Josh Allen last year was going in the mid second, early third at latest in online drafts. He went the last pick of the fourth round in that league. So you have to understand who you're drafting with as well on going after these early round quarterbacks. Now, Pat Mahomes, again, he's going to be good. You're not going to be disappointed with your results. It's just you're going to be giving up on, let's see who's around him in ADP. Let's go AJ Brown, Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Adams, Derrick Henry, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Josh Jacobs, Jalen Waddle. And that's most of those are names between Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen on Sleeper. Just a calculation you have to make for yourself during your draft. See how you want to build your team. You want to go into your draft with a plan. Again, draft strategy show coming next week. Moving on to the running back position. This is not, I think, a major strong point for the Chiefs. They do have Isaiah Pacheco, who ended up being the running back 34 last year in standard, 37 in PPR. He did kind of take off after the Clyde Edwards-Helaire injury. Jerick McKinnon had some good run. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still there. Pacheco's going first of those at 77.9. Then a little bit later, as we scroll, Jerick McKinnon 124.3 and Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 179.5. So all of these you can get next to nothing. The only one you really have to pay for it at all is Isaiah Pacheco, and that's still an 7th, 8th round pick. So not too expensive there, but this has always been a running back by committee type of team since they got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and the strength is going through Pat Mahomes. So Isaiah Pacheco coming off a couple injuries as well. 8th round, any interest, or is it something where it's just not worth it?
I don't know, because I think you really tend to think about passing when it comes to the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think this is going to be a three-headed monster until one guy gets hurt. McKinnon's going to get a lot of the passing game work, and I could see Edwards-Helaire and Pacheco being in a near 50-50 timeshare between that. This is one of those preseason battles that's going to be worth watching. If we see Edwards-Helaire get a lot more work, especially preseason game 2, maybe we are wrong on Pacheco being that number 1 off the board, but if it's all Pacheco, or maybe it'll be more of an even split, we're going to wait for more information. But for me, Chiefs backfield, not something I'm interested in. And to keep on it, there's really not much in the passing game that I'm excited about for a fantasy asset. Number 1 off the board, Sky Moore at pick 133.8. Rashee Rice, the rookie, at 138 even. I mean, MVS is not really on the board. Justin Ross, 207.4. So any of these are very, very late round picks or going to be on your waiver wires. The theory is with any of these guys, it can't all go through Travis Kelce. It can't all go through passing games to the running back. A wide receiver has to step up and at least be what Juju was last year for this team, a big body possession receiver that can help free up Kelce and free up some of the other options. So are you interested in any of the Chiefs wide receivers? If so, why? If not, why?
The two ones that I think are definitely favorable, Moore and Rice, and Yahoo Fantasy Managers actually have Moore ranked at WR55, and Rice is WR64. So I think those two more would be late round draft dart throws, but solid dart throws that you at least have some upside for. I think one you're avoiding throwing the dart for definitely has to be Kadarius Toney, especially with all the injury concerns. Even though he's ranked at WR36 above Moore and Rice, I definitely think Moore is the more sturdy one, and Rice would definitely be the second sturdy one.
And that's a good call out. Kadarius Toney actually is going above both of those. at the ADP of 90, but he is coming off a knee surgery that he had just a few weeks ago. They expect him back for the regular season, but he's got so many injury concerns. He's the one that could pop, but he also is the one that could pop his legs out of socket very easily and be missing a lot of time. So a lot of risk. Maybe Tony's the right pick if you want to go a little earlier, but I think of Sky Moore, Rashid. I think I'd rather take the shot on Rashid Rice. We saw Sky Moore last year. At least take a guy that we don't know all about if we're going to take a shot in the dark. And then last, back to number one at the position, Travis Kelce, 6.7 ADP, very expensive. But last year, let's see, TJ Hawkinson was the tight end 2 in PPR, had 215.4 points compared to Travis Kelce, 215.4 for Hawkinson. Kelce had 316.3, so over 100 points more than number 2 at the position in PPR. So he is a positional advantage. You cannot argue that fact, but at pick 6.7, you're going to make decisions between Cooper Kupp and Travis Kelce. Bijan Robinson, who is going up draft boards, now average draft position of 7.4. He was close to 8.4 last time we talked about him. Tyreek Hill, 7.5. Austin Eckler, 4.8. So that's the kind of decision you're going to be looking at. Saquon Barkley, 9.3. It's a lot to give up to go get such a big positional advantage, but another one, Travis Kelce, a proven producer. One thing to keep in mind, he is age 33 as of right now, going into the season. That is getting to the upper age for an NFL player, especially a tight end who has been as productive as him with well over about 700 catches the last 7 years. At some point, the body's going to start to break down. I don't know if it's this year, but dynasty-wise, I'm looking to get rid of Travis Kelce before the value completely drops off. But he's still, I think he's comparable to Derrick Henry in the running backs. If you believe he's got one more year, he might be worth that pick. If not, it's probably a good idea to pass. Thoughts on Kelce?
Yeah, when you're talking about someone who's in the same breath as CMC, Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, I'm not sure about if you would take him before Austin Eckler or Justin Jefferson, but definitely over Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. So that's some pretty paramount company that he's in.
I probably need to do a mock with drafting him in the first round, but I don't want to do that just to see how it was. I did my first mock today drafting Bijan Robinson in the first round, someone who I'm pretty sure at that draft position I'm just out on. But I don't know how I like how that looks, and I don't know how I like it if I go Travis Kelce very early. I think it's giving up too much, but he is an absolute game breaker. When he has his monster 3 touchdown weeks, he is going to win you weeks. You cannot deny that ability of one Travis Kelce. Moving on to the Chargers, new offensive coordinator, new weapon in Quentin Johnson, and you got to think this is still going to be a very solid team overall. Justin Herbert at quarterback, coming off the rib injury, had a bad year last year. Going at the quarterback 7, pick 46.3. He is a very much so a pocket passer in his career. He's yet to eclipse more than 305 yards. He's got 302, so that's his career high. He's not going to get you that extra little boost on the ground that you would get from a Lamar Jackson, a Justin Fields, a Josh Allen, a Jalen Hurts. They're all going in the same ballpark, maybe a little earlier than him, but in the same ballpark as Herbert. Pocket passers are very touchdown dependent, and you can't count on touchdowns one year to the next, but Keenan Allen's healthy as of right now. Mike Williams is healthy as of right now. Quentin Johnson, I just mentioned the rookie. You've got potential for Justin Herbert to pay above that wide quarterback 7, pick 46.3 ADP. But I once called him the trash can. I didn't believe him then. I picked him up and he went to crap. So I'm still a little not a fan of Justin Herbert because he's hurt me so much. And Justin Herbert's not the only quarterback. Lamar Jackson, every time I draft him, is dog crap. Every time I play him, he breaks my soul. So I know you're more of a fan of Justin Herbert. So let me hear your rose-colored glasses view on him.
I don't know. Not quite as much rose-colored after last year, of course, given the fact that he was hurt. I think it just goes to show us that it'll be big to see how he bounces back or not this year, especially after getting the Brinks truck backed up. And how he tends to respond to his injury and shrugging off that bad year. I think this year is really going to be very important for the Chargers, and hopefully certain coaches won't play key players in games that don't matter when they really need them for the playoffs.
Well, if that was Brandon Staley, then it could still happen. If it was Lombardi, he is gone. Of course, Kellen Moore coming in was the architect of that high-powered offense for the Cowboys for the last few years, but that also was a pretty heavy running game. So when we go to Austin Eckler, he is number 2 at the position, ADP of 4.8. Another person, if you want him, you're going to have to get lucky and get an early draft position to even have a shot at him. You're not going to get him past pick 7, pick 8. Even in mocks, I haven't seen him fall that far. You can't argue the production. Austin Eckler last year was the running back 1 in PPR, running back 4 in standard. The year before he was 2 in each. Did have some injury problems in 2020, but the year before that was a top 10 back as well. Austin Eckler is pretty safe, especially since he does have last year 107 receptions. I don't know if he can repeat that, especially with Quentin Johnson coming into the fold, but only 204 carries, did get 13 touchdowns, 18 overall if you include the passing game work, didn't eclipse 1,000 yards on the ground, but 722 through the air. If that passing game work goes away, there is a risk, there's a potentiality that Austin Eckler at age 28 starts to come back to the pack a little bit as he's being drafted again at pick 4.8. He's being picked as the running back number 2 in the year where running backs are not going as early as normal. So he's really being put up on a pedestal. There is a risk that his workload goes backwards, especially in that passing game, and that could make this a very bad pick should that occur. If it doesn't, he keeps getting those huge target numbers, he's going to be just fine. Austin Eckler, your thoughts?
Yeah, just Eckler is just part of this entire offense right now. He's a definitely solid RB2 draft. As you just have to wonder once again, questions of injuries, questions of you had Justin Herbert who had that brutal injury. I think it was in the game against the 49ers when the defense was just very physical and still managed to come back out from the injury tent. And Austin Eckler has had his share of injuries too. Just depends upon whether or not how much you have the first round receiver Quentin Johnson added into the mix that might help take some of the pressure off of Austin Eckler as draw some more of the defense focus, since of course they don't have film, they don't know what his tendencies tend to be. So we'll see if that helps or that hurts Eckler.
Good thing for Eckler, the rest of the roster, Joshua Kelly and Isaiah Spiller, it's a pretty shallow roster. He's going to get a lot of work, but I do expect Joshua Kelly and Isaiah Spiller to be involved. Another thing we want to call out, he did play in 17 games last year, 16 the year before. Running backs do not often play all 16 games, and when he hasn't, he's finished much lower down the rankings.
And another thing to keep in mind that Austin Eckler has been a top 3 running back in each of the last 2 seasons, and the team made 0 additions to the backfield while instead they were upgrading the O-line, in case you're wondering why Eckler is going so far high up in the draft.
However, they also didn't want to pay him as well. So what does that do to Eckler? Is it a motivating factor or is it a distraction? That's another thing to keep in mind. Not questioning Austin Eckler at pick number 4 or 5, but that passing level of over 100 receptions, that's very uncommon. I mean, even Christian McCaffrey, I don't know if Christian McCaffrey's had over 100 receptions. He had 1 year of 116 and 107 in Carolina. Both years immediately followed by major injury problems. So maybe I just think it's a risk. It's not someone I've typically gone after. It's not someone I've typically had an option for if I've been in, middle rounds of the draft, but there's a risk there. I don't know if it's one I'm going to take. I think I'd rather go for Cooper Kupp, Bijan, or Tyreek Hill in that position, but that's just my personal preference. And I think you can group the first 6 or 7 guys in the draft: Jefferson, McCaffrey, Chase, Eckler, Kupp, and Tyreek Hill, kind of all in that same tier. I guess Bijan for some people slipping in there, and Travis Kelce as well. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay, question. How much of a risk do you think Williams presents?
Mike Williams. Okay, we'll start with him. I want to make some kind of mention here. How many games since 2018 do you think Mike Williams has missed due to injury?
I think more last year than others.
I know, but in total, because obviously we all know Mike Williams' injury history. It's part of his narrative. He gets hurt very often. He misses games. How many games since 2018, the entire 2018 season, and 19, 20, 20, and 21, the last 5 years, how many games has he missed?
5 or 6.
He's missed a total of 7, which is an average of 1.4 games per year. That's not, to me, an injury concern. Yes, he missed 4 last year. He missed 1 the year before, 1 the year before, and 1 the year before that. The injuries have not been a problem. I think last year he did have more injury concerns than he's had. That was mismanagement. He came back too early from the ankle injury, and then they played him in a game they didn't need to. And Justin Herbert was hurt. So I think Mike Williams is a true bounce back candidate. You're not paying up like you were last year. He's going at pick 65.2 in sleeper. So that's a late 5th, early 6th, depending on your league format. Could be even into the 7th round. And he is attached to one of the best quarterbacks in the league in Justin Herbert. He's attached to one of the best offensive coordinators now in Kellen Moore. So the potential for him to improve from where he was last year, I think, is almost a given. If he plays all of his games, it's going to happen, even on a per game basis. But he could look like he did in 2022, when the next year he was going in the 4th round of these drafts. He was looking like a potential breakout candidate.
Hypothetical draft mock situation here. Let's say it's your pick, and you tend to you're looking for a wide receiver with this pick. You have the choice of these three wide receivers: Terry McLaurin, WR27, of course, Washington; Mike Williams, WR28, of course, the team that we're currently focusing on; and Marquise Hollywood Brown, WR29, from Arizona. Which one of those three? You take Mike Williams, or do you take your favorite McLaurin?
Look, first, you said that was wide receiver. McLaurin was 27, Williams was 28, and Brown was 29.
Correct.
To highlight some of the differences, Terry McLaurin in sleeper is going at pick 47.3. Mike Williams 65.2, Hollywood Brown 68.8. There's Ayuk between Williams and Brown, but there is Godwin, London, Watson, Judy, DJ Moore, DeAndre Hopkins between McLaurin and Williams. So that, again, remember your ADPs based on your drafting platform. For me, between those three, I'm going to go Terry McLaurin. I do think he's more of that 4th round ADP value. I think he has shown in the past, and just to pull up his stats, he was the wide receiver 14 last year. Remember, he had Heineke and he had Carson Wentz. He has proven over the years he's able to be a wide receiver 2 level of. Actually, you know what? It's real close with him and Williams. I think I still lean McLaurin, but it's actually no. I'm going to go Williams. I think just him being attached to Herbert is just going to make that little bit of a difference, because the upside is there. I think I'd rather take Williams. I know McLaurin is safer. I know he's going to get me wide receiver 2 value most of the time throughout the entire year, but Williams could return wide receiver 1 value. He could be wide receiver 4 level if he gets hurt and has some bad games, but I think I'd take Williams there.
Okay, so even though it's a crazy round 7, somehow Justin Herbert, QB7, QB6, right above him, Justin Fields. I know before we went on the air, you were talking, oh my God, Chicago's going absolutely crazy. So Herbert or Fields?
I think right now I lean Fields, just because that running game could be the absolute game breaker, cheat code type of thing. We saw him last year on pace at one time for almost 1,700 yards through an 8-game stretch. If he gets you 1,700 yards rushing and anything passing the ball, he's going to be a top 2 or 3 quarterback on the season. He's going to be an MVP candidate. Justin Herbert, he'd have to throw for 45, 50 touchdowns to be on that level, and I just don't see that happening. So I would rather have Justin Fields over Justin Herbert. I do think both are good picks. Fields going 44.8, Herbert going 46.3, so they're very, very close together. But I kind of see Justin Fields as the discount version of Allen and Hurts, and he's going to be much closer in productivity. And I think Herbert is maybe the discount version of Joe Burrow, who's already the discount version of Pat Mahomes in the passing
Right.
game.
Okay. Are you ready for some tight end jeopardy here?
Well, we still got to talk about Keenan Allen on this team.
Oh, okay.
Going pick 39.3, so he's going in that late 4th, early 5th window. He had a lot of injuries last year, but he's turning 30. He's going to be, I think, good for at least one more year.
All right. So, looking at WR16, Debo Samuel, WR17, Keenan Allen, that's easy for me to say, or WR18, Jerry Jeudy, and we'll throw in one more for bonus, WR19, Amari Cooper.
Give me Debo.
Ooh, okay.
Debo and Keenan are going right next to each other in sleeper as well, 38.4 and 39.3. Debo the higher. Amari Cooper at 43.9. I think those are all fair. Jerry Jeudy's attached to Russell Wilson, and I'm not sold on. I think he's going to be a lot better than he was last year, both Jeudy and Wilson. But I think I'd rather have one of those other three that's got a little more proof in the pudding. And Debo Samuel sounds like he is motivated to prove that last year was a fluke. I'm pretty high on Debo, actually. So, last name to mention for the wide receivers here is Quentin Johnston, rookie first-round pick for the Chargers, pick 95.3. The role appears for this year to be a slot role player. Keenan Allen getting up in age, Mike Williams getting up in age. I think this is a guy who's got brighter days in the future. I don't know about him this year, but in a dynasty league, this is someone I think you want to hold on to for at least a couple years, see what happens, and you might be very happy you did. All right, now to the tight end. Joel, tight end Jeopardy, you were saying?
Oh, yeah, I'm trying. Hang on, just let me do the finding thing here. Because we need to have Jeopardy music. Oh, here we go. Yes, that would be tight end 17-1, Gerald Everett. So
Of the Chargers.
above him, we have 3 tight ends. We'll take out Matthew Stafford since we're just talking about tight ends here. Everett, tight end 17, and getting chiggy with it at tight end 16. And of course, up at tight end 15 from Buffalo, where they like to jump themselves into tables. Tight end 15, one Dalton Kincaid.
Again, know your platform because ESPN's got these 3 right next to each other. Jared Everett pick 148.6, basically undrafted in most leagues. Chig Okonkwo 117.5, one Dalton Kincaid at 118.1. If you'd asked me this a couple weeks ago, it would have been a slam dunk Chig. Everett is the clear third in this one. But Dalton Kincaid's getting a lot of good buzz out of Buffalo. So I think I'm still leaning for Okonkwo. But if I see Buffalo comes out and Kincaid is just lighting it up in the preseason, that could quickly change. That gap is nowhere near what it was a few weeks ago. Kincaid very well may be one of the best sleeper candidates at tight end this year.
So like that corny song on the internet, you're a guy on a buffalo.
Yeah. So Jared Everett, again, pretty much free, attached to a good quarterback. I don't think he's going to be a week-to-week play, but he could be a streaming option, injury fill-in. He's just not someone you're going to be overly inspired to have on your roster unless you're in a very deep league that mandates that you have to have a tight end.
Like a 16-teamer. Cough, cough.
Yeah. Next up, we're going to the Las Vegas Raiders. And scrolling down to Jimmy Garoppolo, pick 227.7 is his ADP. He is going before Trey Lance, who is not a starter, Desmond Ridder, who hasn't shown it, Mac Jones, who hasn't started, Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask, who we don't even know who's starting. Behind Sam Howell, Kenny Pickett, Ryan Tannehill. So he's going way too late in drafts to even consider. The question with Garoppolo is can he sustain players like, we'll go to wide receivers now because there's a lot to talk about with Jacobs. Can he sustain the production of one Devontae Adams, who's going at pick 15.6? Was the wide receiver 3 last year. Has really never had a bad season where he wasn't injured. He did have a wide receiver 1 campaign in 2020 when he missed 2 games, but 12 games in 2019 was a 23 and 29. So the question here is, do we think Garoppolo can sustain the passing volume that helped Devontae Adams be a good wide receiver last year because he was not efficient. He just had 100 receptions on 180 targets and 14 touchdowns, a career high.
Oh, yeah, you don't know what's going on with the Raiders, as that's just a team that is just seemingly full of question marks. As the last time that maybe even when Gruden was the coach, they really were just seeming to constantly just implode. And you have the whole situation with with the running back and all that question. So Jimmy Garoppolo's injury history, I just don't see how you really draft him with any confidence right now.
Yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo, you can't go. And if he does get hurt in terms of Devontae Adams, Brian Hoyer behind him. And then Aiden O'Connell is the number 3. I think Devontae Adams is possibly the best pure wide receiver in football. He's getting a little older in his age 30 season. But I would rather take the shot with Jefferson, who's already shown extreme chemistry with Kirk Cousins. Jamar Chase has extreme chemistry with Joe Burrow. Even Cooper Kupp, who's with a lesser quarterback in Matt Stafford, has shown so much chemistry. Tyreek Hill with Tua, Stephon Diggs, A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, there's so many guys that have shown great chemistry with who they've got, and then Devontae Adams has that part of the unknown. Early second-round pick. It's a risk. I think he's going to return top 10 value, but you're taking him right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, wide receiver 8 off the board. It's not bad value, but I think wide receivers are being elevated up. If you look at the overall ADP, he's also going in the same range as Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb at running back. And I think I'd rather go with Nick Chubb or Derrick Henry over Devontae Adams. But Devontae Adams is still an all-time great player.
Oh, yeah, no question about it, even though he was sort of definitely shocked when you had the change at quarterback just a little bit.
Yeah. Jacoby Myers coming over from New England. He is basically free in a lot of drafts. Overall, 148 in standard league, 78 in PPR. So if you want him, you can get him. But it's just average draft position of 127.1. So basically a free pick if you want him. Hunter Renfrow still on that roster. At tight end, they did draft Michael Mayer. They did briefly have O.J. Howard on the roster before cutting him. So I think there's a gap because, remember, they did trade away Darren Waller. I think the passing game is going to have to go fully through Devontae Adams, which is both good and bad. Also means defenses can key on him, but he's going to get a lot of work. Then back to the running back, Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, Garoppolo is one of those you're trying to find him. You're like, I'm scrolling.
Yeah, he takes a while. He's in the low 20s in the quarterback rankings. Josh Jacobs, running back 8 on the board and dropping because he was, I think, running back 5 or 6 before he started his holdout, not signing the franchise tag. He is on the franchise tag. He has left Las Vegas. The expectation, because, well, you either sit out and don't get paid anything, or you play on the franchise tag, or do what Saquon Barkley did and take a stupid deal and go back under a little bit better terms. But the expectation for me is that he's going to come back at some point, probably after the game number 2 in the preseason, get a little bit of conditioning work, not actually practice, be ready for the regular season, play on this contract, and hope for the best. If he does that, Las Vegas already has Zamir White behind him who's getting rave reviews. They're going to pound Josh Jacobs into the dirt and let him walk and let Zamir White go into next season as the starter. That's my thought. Now, for a fantasy term, if a team is going to pound their running back into the dirt and give him a ton of work, knowing he's not part of our future, that's a guy you want on your roster because he's going to get it done on volume. So at pick 20.7, late second, early third round pick, depending on your league, Josh Jacobs slipping back into that absolute steal category. But the risk is he does do the Le'Veon Bell thing and say, well, I'm not coming back. Good luck without me. Okay. I personally would rather have $10 million and run the football for sure than not, but that's my opinion.
Okay, you ready for an impossible decision card?
Okay.
You have to choose Josh Jacobs or Jonathan Taylor.
I did see news on Jonathan Taylor. I'll see if I can pull it up on here. Expected back next week. Jonathan Taylor is expected to be back with the organization sometime next week, according to head coach Shane Steichen. Taylor has been away from the team while reportedly rehabbing his ankle. It's also worth noting that Taylor recently requested a trade from the team after failing to agree on a contract extension. The assumption is that he's going to practice when he returns, but no official word on that. If he's going to go back to the team, he's going to go back to the facility. That to me says that the situation is thawing. And if it's me, I'd rather have the player that's back sooner rather than later. It's a tough one, especially since Jonathan Taylor's going 6.5 picks earlier. I think I lean Jonathan Taylor for right now, but I also assume Jonathan Taylor is fully healthy and he's been away on the team as like a protest, and he's going to come back and play on his deal and be just fine. We're Jacob still, in theory, we don't have any word when he's coming back. I'd rather have the guy I know is at least entertaining the thought than the one who's not.
I definitely agree. You rather, in this case, have the known quantity of the person who's heading back towards playing and being a part of the team and contributing, rather than the other person who's I'm taking my marbles and I'm going home right now.
Now, I'll say this. If I get to the point where I only have those two to pick between in a fantasy draft, I'm not going to be happy because Nick Chubb's going right before Taylor. Henry's going between those two names, and Tony Pollard is going after, just immediately after Jacobs. All three of those names around them are much more enticing to me right now because they are in camp. They are for sure. Even Ramondre Stevenson, Najee Harris, Travis Etienne. Breece Hall's a little concerning. Jahmyr Gibbs, we'll see about the workload. But there's a lot of names in that ballpark that I'd rather have for sure.
Would you rather just, if this case with so much toss-up and uncertainty, just go F it and go A.J. Brown or Amon-Ra St. Brown?
Yeah, this is an opportunity that you might just say, screw it. Give me CeeDee Lamb. Give me Devontae Adams. Give me Amon-Ra St. Brown. Give me Jalen Waddle, who are all in that range, as well as, again, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, and Tony Pollard. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, not too far behind Josh Jacobs. So I think there's enough there. You don't have to take the risk, but, like Joel said, you must choose between those two. Give me the one coming back a little sooner. And then last and least in this division, most likely, we are going to talk about the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson, Mr. Danger Witch.
Mr. Turning the golf cart over.
Mr. High Knees on the airplane to Europe.
Mr.
ADP.
Mr. Let It Ride.
ADP of 140.6. There's going to be a lot of 10-team leagues he does not get drafted in this year. And after last season, it's hard to argue that. Now, I'll say this. The last 2 years have not been great. He was quarterback 16 both years. Seattle, he had that hand injury, limited his ability to throw the ball. Last year, he had Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah.
Before that, quarterback 6. Before that, 3, 9, 1, 9, 3, 3. So he's got a history of success. I think we all can agree Sean Payton is a more competent coach than what he had in Nathaniel Hackett. I think that's a given. I think with Jerry
I want to know when the fight between Hackett and Payton's going to be.
Well, let's see. I think they play this year. Nathaniel Hackett with the Jets, they play week 5. So that's the smart money on it.
Will there be a handshake?
Yep. Not between those two. But all of that being said, they still have Jerry Jeudy. They still have Cortland Sutton. They have Greg Dulcich. They have Mims, who they just drafted. They should have had Tim Patrick, but the Achilles injury killed that. Javonte Williams coming back healthy. Samaje Perine. So they've got weapons. They've got a great defense. They do have a solid offensive line. I don't think Russell Wilson is done. He did have a decent 7 of 13 for 93 yards and a touchdown in the preseason loss to the Cardinals, given it's the Cardinals, but it's also preseason game 1. But it's better than he was doing last year on average, so I think there's hope here.
Are you ready for some quarterback roulette?
Oh, boy. Yeah.
I probably have an idea where you're going to go with this one, even before I give you the question. But Russell Wilson, QB 16. Anthony Richardson, QB 17, we know the Colts are going Richardson or Minshew. Ha, 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 ha.
Yeah.
Or at QB 15, the one person who they wrote him off, but he didn't write back, Geno Smith.
Again, good time to point this out. Anthony Richardson on Sleeper is the quarterback number 11, going at pick 101.6. Geno at 14, 119.2. Russell at 17, 140.6. So in Sleeper, this is not even a consideration. I think you take the upside of Anthony Richardson, but in your draft on ESPN, you might not have to face this decision until much, much later. Russell Wilson is the number 3 in that scenario just because I think Geno, we saw it last year with pretty much the same team he's going to have this year. And I think that's a good coach, well-coached team. They're going to be fine. But I'd rather take the upside of Anthony Richardson. Now, I'll say this. If I take an Anthony Richardson, I want to come back a little bit later and grab someone like a Geno Smith or a Russell Wilson or even a Jordan Love and say, okay, you're going to pace me the first week or two while I see what we have in Richardson. If he comes out and lights the world on fire, he looks like the next Lamar Jackson, the next Josh Allen. Okay, cool. I'll cut the second one.
When Lamar was actually good.
Well, he's just been hurt too much. That's the big thing. But I think I take the shot on Anthony Richardson just for that running upside. I do think when we talk about the draft strategy, my idea of getting a quarterback in those first 5-6 rounds, I think it's a smart strategy, especially if you get the guy you want, because we all are going to have a favorite between Mahomes, Allen Hurts, Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, those first 8 guys at, cost dependent. We're going to have a favorite in those. If you get your guy, I think you'll be very happy with the rest of your drafts. All right, so scrolling down the list, Javonte Williams on Sleeper right now, 73.6 ADP. He is going in the 7th, 8th round. This is not a guy who is being highly drafted, mostly because he's coming off of a knee injury. However, he didn't see a snap last night. Not a surprise. He's expected to be the starter. He is listed as the starter ahead of Samaje Perine. But they're expecting to play him in the preseason in week number 2. Sorry. My thoughts on this is if he's still injured, they're not going to do that.
Oh, all right. So calling back to a team we just talked about, the Chiefs, do you pick Javonte Williams or Isaiah Pacheco?
Javonte Williams. I'll take the risk that he's not 100% healthy and it's going to take a little bit of time. I just don't think Pacheco is going to be the number 1 all by himself, no matter what. I do think McKinnon's going to get some play. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to get some play. Whereas Javonte, yes, Samaje Perine might be a little bit of a thorn in the side, but if he's healthy, he is the clear number 1 on that roster. And since they're going to play him next week in the preseason, I got to assume he's at least more healthy than a lot of us were assuming. So I expect that ADP to jump up above Dalvin Cook, above DeAndre Swift, above maybe even Connor Madison and Cam Akers by the time real drafts are really coming in. Because remember, a lot of this is your off-season mock drafts. A lot of this is your off-season, I just got to draft because it's July and I need something to do kind of people, the ones that are really hardcore in it. Once you start getting these people that don't focus on fantasy football in May, June, July, April, like I do and Joel does and some other people I know, you're going to see some of these change. And Pacheco might be one that flies up the board too because, well, he was a hot name at the end of the year. But Williams, I think that ADP is going to go up quite a bit. So at where he's at now, 73.6, probably a little bit of value. But there is still the risk of that not being fully healthy, not being fully back into game shape, and re-injury risk as we go forward. Going to the wide receivers, this was Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton last year. We're pretty much right where Jerry Jeudy's going this year. Jeudy at 54.9, 5th round pick, pretty much square, right in the middle of it. Was good at times last year. He ended the season with about 5 or 6 straight 10-point weeks, but he wasn't anything spectacular. Wide receiver 22 in PPR, did miss a couple of games, but maybe he got something going late in the season with Russell Wilson. He's going at, again, 54.9. As we scroll down to Cortland Sutton, who's fallen all the way to 108.7. Cortland Sutton's been a real disappointment the last few years. So
Yeah, I still.
obviously, I think
Yeah,
you'd obviously rather have Jerry Jeudy if you just had both of them in a vacuum. But let's play that ADP into account because it is 54.9 to 58 or 108.7. So it's almost twice the picks down the board. 54, 55 to 108, 109. At the ADP, would you rather pay up for Jeudy in the 4th or early 5th, or wait for Sutton in the 11th?
I think I'd rather pay up.
Okay.
And are you ready for a
I think
little?
I'd rather do it on. I think it'd be the other way. I think I'd rather Sutton late, just because I think he's got a little more to prove, and I think he's got a contract coming up.
Ready for a little wide receiver roulette from the
All right.
Denver Broncos here? Okay, we're going to start off with 3 choices. Round and round she goes. Where we stop, nobody knows. Cortland Sutton, of course, WR39. WR38, Michael Thomas from the New Orleans Saints,
Ooh.
or from the Dallas Cowboys. I saw a meme that said that they actually are moving to the Big 12.
Oh yeah.
WR37, one Brandon Cooks.
Oh boy. This might be the best one you've ever asked, because Cortland Sutton's attached to Russell Wilson, who we don't have a lot of confidence in. Michael Thomas, we don't have a lot of confidence in his ankle not exploding once again.
Here.
And Brandon Cooks, I don't know if you saw the video of Dak Prescott throwing to Deuce Vaughn in double coverage. I don't know if you know what Deuce Vaughn looks like, but he is roughly this tall.
I'm guessing a human tank?
No, he's 5'6". He's literally like this tall, and Dak Prescott threw into double coverage to him. And mind you, this tall. So none of them are really connected to anybody I'm excited about. So I'm going to say, who do I think has the best upside? And I'm going to say it's going to be Cortland Sutton, because in theory, he could rebound to what we thought he was a few years ago. He's going super late. He could be the number 1 on this team. Brandon Cooks is going to be behind CeeDee Lamb. We know that for sure. Michael Gallup is still there. And they have a great running game in Tony Pollard with no injury risk.
Yeah.
Michael Thomas, they have Chris Olave, so Thomas is going to be the number 2. They still have Kamara. They still have a pretty good running game all around. They've got a bunch of tight ends. So I could see a scenario where Michael Thomas, even if he's healthy, is not the number 1 or even number 2 option on that team. And Cortland Sutton, while I don't think that's the case, is going to be the one. I think that will be Jerry Jeudy. There is an opportunity for him to ascend to that primary role. So I'll take the shot on Sutton, but it's gross.
Yeah, it's sort of one you kind of go like this too, right?
Yeah.
A lot of ew.
Yeah. All right. Then the last position, the last guy we're going to talk about for the divisional breakdown, Greg Dulcich, picked 130.4, the tight end for the Denver Broncos. Missed a lot of time at the start of last year, missed the first 5 weeks and the last 2. But in between those, had some good performances, was the tight end 29, but again, only played 10 games. He showed enough flashes with the Broncos last year that you should give him a sniff at the end of your draft. He's not going to be maybe a target of yours, but he was good enough to at least get some consideration.
Okay, I have a very small tight end roulette here because there are actually only 2 choices when we're actually looking at round 13. Here, either Greg Dulcich or from the Los Angeles Rams, Tyler Higbee, TE14 and TE13, respectively.
Okay, so in Sleeper, they actually do go back-to-back. Dulcich at 130.4, Higbee at 141.8. I think Higbee's going to be a bigger part of their offense, and at the round discount, I'd rather have Higbee. But it's close. I can't argue Greg Dulcich is going to be about that same value. I just have a hunch that Higbee's going to be a little bit more involved just because they don't really have a number 2 wide receiver. I think it's going to be Higbee by default there, and then Jefferson is the number 3, whereas with the Broncos, you do have Sutton and Jeudy, and then hopefully Marvin Mims gets something going, and they have that as the 3rd weapon, and then Dulcich is a number 3, number 4 type of option.
And you've already mentioned him because I know we were talking about wide receivers, quarterbacks, and even tight ends, but how about a little running back? Only two roulette. Samaje P. Ryan or From your Miami Dolphins, greatest football team landing, take the ball from goal to goal, as the song goes, Jeff Wilson Jr., RB37 and RB38, respectively.
Yeah, that's. Mm, mm. Oh boy. P Ryan's going to be the backup, but there's enough upside in sleeper. P Ryan's actually going closer to Devon A-Chain, who's the number one off the board for the Dolphins. Jeff Wilson's the number 3 at 154.2. So he's going almost 50 whole picks after P Ryan. I'd rather have P Ryan just because if something happens to Devontae, P Ryan becomes the clear starter on that roster. Again, we look at the depth chart, it is not encouraging. Javonte Williams, Samaje Perine, Tony Jones, and Tyler Batty's the entirety of the roster right now. So Javonte goes down. Yes, right now Kareem Hunt's out there, Dalvin Cook's out there, Ezekiel Elliott's out there, but the assumption is those guys are going to sign in the next few weeks before the season starts or very early on with the first injury. If Javonte goes down a little bit later, they might have to just go to Samaje Perine, and I'll take the shot on that.
Yeah, because we remember last year Jeff Wilson Jr. had a marvelous first half, but then when you needed him in the second half, just basically vanished.
Well, he's got a little bit of injury history. Moster has an injury history. A-Chain's been injured in camp, but he played last night. And coming from that San Francisco style of offense, they don't necessarily have a number one that they're just going to bank on unless they get a Christian McCaffrey or they get a Derrick Henry or even a Dalvin Cook type.
And
yeah, it's just I'd rather have the upside of a backup that can get in.
And at WR51, I'm seeing a name that gives me shudders from draft.
We'll wait and find out what those shudders are at wide receiver 51. As Joel drops once again. Don't know what the cause of that is, but he just likes to drop. He'll be back. Waiting for Joel in 3, 2, 1. Here he is. It's Joel.
It was
all right. Shutters. There was so much shutters it broke your internet.
Yeah, it was reverberating through the entire time-space continuum. So that's what knocked me from the broadcast. I'm convinced. Sorry, I've been watching too much Star Trek this weekend. But anywho, yeah, the shutters of Christmas past. Yeah, that would be DJ Chark Jr. That definitely is shutter worthy.
Yeah. I don't want DJ Chark. I think he's got potential with Carolina though, because it's DJ Chark, it's Adam Thielen, it's Jonathan Mingo, it's not a lot of established names, and DJ Chark is the only one.
I always think of Mingo when you say, Mingo. I think of Mongo, like, from Flash Gordon.
Yeah. DJ Chark is only 26 years old, so in theory, he's got a long time ahead of him.
Carolina must have like some sort of clause, like they have to have a DJ on their team. It must be like in the team bylaws or something recently.
Maybe they trade away DJ Moore and then sign DJ Chark, so it's possible. But yeah, DJ Chark's just not someone I'm looking forward to. But he does have the potential of being a waiver wire pickup should the connection with Young be good. DJ Chark building chemistry with the rookie quarterback Bryce Young. So we'll see. I mean, someone's got to take the number one on that offense. It's going to be a ground and pound team. Miles Sanders should be an absolute monster. Terrace Marshall is also still on that team. Second rounder Jonathan Mingo, like I had mentioned. So there's a lot of on the Panthers, and someone's got to step up. That's all there is to it. Anyways, predictions for the division, Joel.
Yeah, as I tended to say, that I think it's just easy to pick the Chiefs. I don't think anybody, unless you really, or just have been doing a lot of drinking of quality adult beverages, and think that the anybody else other than the Raiders, if you think that finally this is going to be the Chargers' year, no. The Chargers have a high-powered offense. It's going to be Chiefs. The Chargers are high-powered enough, I think, to be number 2. Then number 3, I think the Broncos are going to be good enough not to be dead sucky last. But I still think Sean Payton's going to be in for a bit of a rude awakening if they think that they're going to suddenly wrestle the crown from the Chiefs. And of course, dead last just because they are so darn dysfunctional, the Las Vegas Raiders.
All right. There's no arguing for me. The Chiefs, number one. No one's taking this division from them this year. It could be an interesting battle for second, I think. Um, I I really want to go with a spicy pick here, but I probably shouldn't. I'm going to take the Broncos second, Chargers third. I do think Sean Payton makes a difference. I think I'm also looking at the schedule for the Broncos. They
So you
play
think the Chargers are due for a regression?
a little bit of that, a little bit of the Broncos progressing, and then Broncos playing Washington, Chicago, Green. I mean, they all play the NFC North, so they get Washington as their bonus game in the division. They're going to play teams like New England instead of.
Is Washington like the free parking and monopoly?
Yeah, it's not something you're really concerned with. They're going to play Cleveland. They're going to play Houston. Like that fourth place schedule that they have from last year could help them out. So I'm going to take the Broncos. I think Russell Wilson's going to be better. I'd take the Broncos second. Don't love it, but Chargers third, and Raiders a fairly distant fourth, I think, and possibly the end of Coach McDaniel out there.
You see that picture of that? And it was kind of chilling how I think it was from 19. It was all the Bama wide receivers, Waddle, Smith, and I'm forgetting who else, but one of the ones was definitely Ruggs. And it's just like, man, you just wish somebody could have gone back in time. Like, just on this night, don't drive on this night. And then the other thing, sort of a bonus final thought, because the final thought I have is way more
we'll move to
humorous.
final thoughts now, anyways. So.
Yeah, they're way more humorous than this. That's why I didn't want this to be my final thought, because especially with how just dark it is. And then you see who's chiming in on Ruggs' jail sentence, saying that it's not enough, and you're saying that the person who said that was O.J. Simpson.
Sometimes you got to know who you are and to not chime in.
But I didn't want to close on that note, because that would be more like a your final thought, just because I know it's darker, and I know sometimes, not always, you tend to like to go down that road, but
sometimes it's fun to go to the darkness. Anyways, proper final thought from Joel. It's not so dark.
Something way more lighter than that comes courtesy of the Cleveland Guardians High A team, because you have to love minor league baseball teams for doing wacky crap when it comes to promotions, taking full advantage of course, the fight between Jose Ramirez and Tim Anderson, as the Lake County Captains are having Jose Ramirez Appreciation Week. All fans named Tim get a free ticket to sit down on the grass. Wear your Ramirez jersey and get a free Bam Bam in the cargo hold. Home Run Punch Derby, and last but not least, Punch Out competition in the 80s arcade. God bless you, minor league baseball teams. Your promotions continue to hit the bullseye.
Yeah, and all 60 fans that show up at minor league games are really going to enjoy that. Yeah, we are less than 10 days from my first draft. So just want to remind everybody out there, if you haven't started thinking of your strategy, again, we'll do a draft strategy show next week. Probably going to be a little bit of a lighter week, no divisional breakdowns, probably just draft strategy and maybe another mayhem walk. We can get everybody together. But it's time to have your strategy set. What do you want to do with these early round quarterbacks? Do you want to go with the trend of the early wide receivers off the board? Do you want to zig when everybody's zagging and go back to the running backs?
Jerry Jeudy was the other Alabama receiver.
Yes. Yeah, they've had a lot recently. So, you want to have a plan in place. Obviously, when you get to your draft, the plan can completely fall apart. But you need to start thinking about that overall plan. Do you want to go running back heavy when everybody's going after the wide receivers and make the wide receivers work later? Do you want to try and keep that balance that you've always tried? Do you want to go after the wide receivers this year? There's a lot of unknowns, so plan accordingly. Because it's fantasy football season now, and we need to know what's going on. So, with that, Again, back next week with a draft strategy show and another mayhem mock, probably. But
So
we'll
just
see.
pretty much 2 shows next week, right?
That's the plan. Maybe a little off schedule because I know Wednesday, Thursday are going to be tough, but we'll figure it out. Anyways, I am, of course, Flying Ryan Go Krista, along with
Joel Vernon, Tampa Motormouth.
and we'll be back next week and then draft week